You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Well, Richard Franzi is not here today, but I am. My name is Peter J. Brennan. I am the financial editor of the Orange County Business Journal, the most important business publication in Orange County, which has an economy the size of Greece. You probably may have heard of it. It's between Los Angeles and San Diego counties, but I digress. Today, we're here with Chris Steely, and I'm really excited to talk with him because he used to work with one of my heroes, Tony Robbins, who I really enjoy. I read his book and looked at his seminar, I'm Not Your Guru, on Netflix. And so we're going to be talking to Chris Steely. Now, many business leaders are always looking for opportunities to grow their firms. In fact, I think almost all of them are, whether it be through new systems, services, or even an increase in social media presence. And there are endless ways to build up a name. And Chris Steely, he's the managing director of GPS Business Group. Now, that's a pretty easy name to remember, GPS Business Group. And he joins us to share how he is using strategic methods to help organizations achieve optimal results and success. Welcome to our show, Chris.
Thanks, Peter. It's good to be here.
Okay, great. Let's start with you sharing an interesting story from your professional path to today.
So I'll dovetail off what you just said. Lots of stories. I've got a background in the military, stories from that, but the real stories come from Tony Robbins and touring with Tony, going to his business mastery events. And I went to 13 of them in order, 13 consecutive events. And you're walking on fire, and confronting business leaders that understand the value of that, taking themselves on literally and metaphorically. It's not about being comfortable in business. And that's one of the things that Tony talks about is stretching, expanding, and engaging. I mean, lots of stories from watching people have breakthroughs across the fire pit, and they apply those concepts into their business, and then watching their businesses take off. And multiple countries. It's just been a great journey working with the likes of that guy. Again, prolific guy. And that I'm Not Your Guru show on Netflix, that's actually his Date with Destiny event. That's what it was. It was a recorded Date with Destiny. So, big fan of Tony. I've known him for 25 years, and it was a pleasure to tour with him. So, lots of stories around that. I'm sure we could talk all day about that.
I'm sure we could. I've interviewed many people over the course of a 30-year journalism career, and I've been impressed with Tony. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. Now, can you tell us about your firm and why your clients choose to do business with you?
So, after about 18 years of working and getting my education, I embarked upon what I call my crusade. And about 12 years ago, it's coming up on 15 years ago, I created GPS Business Group as a firm that's oriented toward applying unconventional business methodologies, innovating the way people think and engage, and focused on getting results. My clients choose to work with me because they understand the value of what I call championship level performance. I excelled in sports, and I take those concepts and apply them toward business. So raising the bar and working with people that understand the value of that. And we enjoy challenging ourselves and innovating the way we think and lead. And it's been great. It's an international practice, working with folks in all across Australia, New Zealand, Europe. One of my favorite stories is I worked with a company that's known as the FedEx of Australia in 4 states across Australia. And we took their sales team from where it was and blew the doors off their business over the course of a few years. And the best part about that is we used to boat on Sydney Harbor in the owner's yacht.
Oh, how
Those
fun.
were the days.
How fun. Well, let me ask you this. A company in Australia, and they're like the FedEx of Australia, you would think they would know what they're doing. And what could you come in and tell them to help them get to the next level?
Well, so I met the owner at Tony Robbins' event. Again, he's a firewalker. He understands the value of taking himself on. And he didn't know what he didn't know about his business. And he was receptive toward the possibilities. So we came in and did an audit of his business development processes. And we determined that there's some things he could have been doing differently. So that's one of the things we did is we revamped his sales organization. He had about 25 salespeople. And we came in, did some looking, did some strategic objectivity, set some plans in place. And then over the course of the next year, it wasn't necessarily intentional to recycle his entire sales team. It was just the right thing to do. So he was, again, oriented toward the possibilities. That's the thing, Peter, in business. A lot of people, I'm a business leader. We have a lot of, ego. We know a lot. I know a lot. But the successful business leaders are the ones that take themselves on and are They understand the value of that coaching concept, that championship level performance. And even the best performers on the planet, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, or whatever, they all have coaches, and they're all oriented toward what they can be, not just settling for their status quo. And the status quo may not be a bad thing, but the likes of the company in Australia, he was open toward what can be and what the possibilities were.
Well, let's take this owner in Australia. He obviously thought something was wrong with his business, which is why he brought you in. And what did you look at when you looked at the business? Were there some metrics you established to decide, okay, if we implement this, and we're gonna measure how well we're doing? I mean, was it sales or was it something else?
Well, just to be clear, there was nothing wrong with his business. It was wildly profitable. When we engaged, he was about $62 million per annum on the top line.
Okay.
And he just realized that it was time to grow, because basically his father created the business and aired it to him, and his father was still the chairman.
Okay.
And so I worked with him and his father, and he knew that he needed to stretch and grow and apply new concepts and methodologies. So what we did is it was a business development focus. We did some strategic planning and focused on which low-hanging fruit marketing and sales strategies were going to bring in the results. Then we deployed them over the course of the next couple of years. So that's what he did. And by the time we ended up working with them, after about 2.5 years of work, they were up to about $75 million per annum. So it was good results, good ROI.
Oh, good to hear. I've always wondered about business, and I always want to keep up to date with what's happening in business. Because, say, for example, we can't be doing the same things we did 20 years ago when there was no Google, no Facebook, no Twitter, none of this stuff. And so, when you're talking to business executives and they want to know how to stay abreast of the newest trends going on, what do you tell them?
Well, with technology, I mean, you know Moore's law, right? The whole hockey stick evolution of how things are just increasing at such an exponential rate. To stay innovative is almost like you just have to really do your best to keep your finger on the pulse of technology. So I would say, whether it be social media or there's some prolific authors, they're the gurus, I call them. And that's what I do, is I bring all these gurus concepts and read books, listen to radio shows, be open and oriented toward what you don't know that you don't know, especially with technology. And then what I do is I take those gurus concepts, innovate them, apply them with strategic approaches to get results in business. So, but it's about, just being aware of and being receptive toward, again, getting past that ego around, oh, I know so much, that there's so much I don't know, especially in today's technologically based world.
It sounds like you have to continually educate yourself on what's going on in the world.
Especially these days. I mean, I'm a reader. I know you're a reader. Leaders are readers. So make sure you're reading books. I'm reading 5 books at a time, and it's great to be able to take those concepts and apply them and get results from them. So,
Let me ask you this: how do you judge a book, whether to read it or not?
Well, not by its cover. Honestly, I know some authors. I mean, I could probably just spout off a whole bunch of great books. I get referred to books by people that I respect. I subscribe to Audible, so I don't read books necessarily. I just listen to books, and Audible's always pushing me books that they think I might be interested in.
Oh, that's interesting.
But part of it, too, is just collaborating with other smart people, and I usually get references to some really good books by some other smart people.
Well, that's great to hear. We must take an ad break right now. This is Peter J. Brennan. I've been speaking with Chris Steely, and we'll be back in a few minutes to discuss more great ways to consult business.
If you are an Orange County business executive, this message is for you. Do you ever feel isolated with no place to turn for advice or feedback? Who holds you accountable to your commitments in your company? Where do you find the right resources to help you and your company grow? If you have these questions, then Critical Mass for Business might be the answer for you. Critical Mass for Business is committed to helping you make better decisions. These are groups of peers running businesses just like you, providing a great sounding board to test ideas and concepts, review plans and goals, and present issues and opportunities for discussion. The result is improved strategy, accountability, people, and execution skills. If you are interested in learning more, go to www.criticalmassforbusiness.com and learn more about our executive peer group.
All right, back to Peter and his guest.
This is Peter J. Brennan, the financial editor at the Orange County Business Journal. I've been talking with, I am still talking with Chris Steely, managing director of GPS Business Group, and was that name GPS? You always know where you're at. Is that right?
It connotates direction. So
Yes.
I like to think that we provide direction. So
Yes. Okay. Very well. During the break, we were just quickly speaking about Tony, and you were talking about. I like Tony Robbins a lot, and I was talking about his book and how I followed his allocation strategy in one of his investments. And I talk to wealth managers all the time, and they say, "Well, boost up your allocation to equities instead of so much in bonds." And so you're telling me that Tony's. Let me have you explain what Tony is.
He's a successful guy, and he's proven that he knows how to do some things. So what we were talking about was, well, who do you listen to? I mean, Tony's written some good books about allocation, and we talk about Peter Dalio and bringing experts like that into the fray. And that's one of the things I like about Tony. He brings other experts into the discussion because he knows a lot, but he also knows that he doesn't know a lot. So I'll listen to that. I'll follow that because he's proven that he's gotten results. And he's where I want to be, so that's why I'll listen to that. But there's, financial advisors are out there. They're telling you different things. You got to watch out who you're listening to. I'll listen to Tony because I know his style and I know his results.
Now, one thing about Tony I noticed is he's very empathetic. You really like him when you see him, particularly on Netflix. And I'm the type of guy who's a cranky old journalist, and it's hard to get for people to really like me. And you're obviously empathetic. And how do you go about becoming an empathetic person that will help you get business?
I would say, so how do you go about becoming an empathetic person? Let's start with that. I like to listen. And honestly, Peter, as you're asking me this, this was an unscripted question. I just care about people. I just inherently want to know who you are as I'm sitting across the table from. So I like to listen. And I don't know, I think I've got this gift of empathy where it's almost like I know how things feel when they occur to you, and I've got this ability to be able to manage that state and understand that. And that's just through practice and trusting myself and trusting my capabilities. And then how do you get business because of that? I mean, that's one of the things I love to talk about is we talk about business development, marketing, and selling. I mean, sales, right? There's lots of ways, to optimize your capability in sales. There's systems and processes you got to follow. It's all about conditioning yourself to be more empathetic and really full circle, be a better listener in the context of developing your business, selling more effectively, and showing that you really do care about your prospect. Because people these days can see through those veils if you don't.
Certainly. Can you give us an example of that? Where you were empathetic, you went into a company and you were doubtful you get the gig, but at the end, the guy gave you the gig and you did whatever you did.
That's usually how it happens. Is people they bring me in because of the rapport we establish, because they can see that I do care. They see I've got the background. I got the chops. I got the attitude. There's got to be a chemistry as well. I'm just thinking of a story. There was a guy who owns a wealth management company, again in Australia. He's based out of Brisbane. And he and I met, and he was very cynical looking at me. I was younger than him. He's like, what's this guy going to tell me that I don't know? And after about 15 minutes, he saw that I cared. And he's like, mate, you're on my team. And brought me on, and we worked together for a year and increased his business and conditioned his sales team to be able to be more effective. So that's one example.
He actually called you mate?
He called me mate, yeah.
Oh, that's quite humorous. I like that. Yeah. Let me ask you, how do you help high growth businesses increase sales and profit?
So from our perspective, it's really kind of a structured approach toward innovating the way you think. So every business owner has to always look outside of themselves and their team in order to see how they're not thinking and surf the market trends and opportunities, and then you have a broad view of the unfolding dynamics, and determine how they're going to apply that. And we have that background from a global reach. Again, we've been my firm and my team has been in 26 countries, so we've got a really good perspective on global objectivity and seeing how it's been done, and then get to see how it can be done. That's through innovation. And then strategy, building a plan. A lot of people are out there winging it, flying by night, So our team, again, we serve thousands of clients around the planet, so we know how to strategize and putting together a structured approach toward achieving results and quantifying the results. And then execution, flawless execution. I've heard this, without courage, strategy is just hope, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to have the courage to execute effectively. So we help business owners develop a bias toward action around doing what it takes. not massive spastic action. You hear that the key to business is massive action. I've also heard that activity can be the anesthesia for lack of results. So it's about doing the right things, not things that was working for somebody else. Again, through innovation, strategy, execution, and then striving for results, always raising that bar. What gets measured gets done. That's easy to say but hard to do.
That's a great statement. 26 countries. That's quite impressive, and I'm sure a number of our listeners would like to know if they want to do business overseas. How do you go about doing it?
Overseas?
Yes.
Well, I aligned with an organization, a couple international organizations that had constituent bases around the world. I was the director of coaching for the world's largest business coaching company. They had leaders in 26 countries, and I'm the guy who trained them how to run their businesses. It was a great ride for a few years, and that gave me kind of an international flair. And then from there, just surrounding myself with people that were global. I mean, I'm a global citizen. Yeah, I live here in Southern California now, but I've lived in Australia. I've lived all over the place. And I'm open and receptive toward connecting with people in those cultures. I've been to China, interesting culture. But I've just chosen to kind of be abroad, I'm the Aussies call me the Yank, so I'm a Yank. But at the same time, I'm a global citizen, respective of those other cultures. They all have economies. They all have economic constructs that I've learned about. I mean, I earned my MBA, so I learned the basics of international finance at a relatively young age, 20 years ago. And the key has been fun to apply that and kind of parlay that and be open toward how you can align. But these days with technology, it is a global force. It's a global, with the internet, the international barriers are down. It's easy to go international if you want to.
But say you're obviously based here in Southern California, but say you want business in China or Australia. How would a person listening to you go about doing it? I mean, do they advertise in those countries, or do they join, like you said, associations that are involved in those countries, or associations for your business that do business outside the country?
The way I did it was through affiliations with people that already have established networks. Like, for instance, China. I knew somebody who actually had a good affiliation with it, because I'm all about training and business development. They had an affiliation with a training and business development company in China, and I got introduced through that. Hong Kong, again, the Tony Robbins affiliation, he's an international player, so I was able to do business in Hong Kong thanks to that Tony Robbins affiliation. But the key, Peter, I mean, as I'm telling you this, the key is just to put yourself out there, and if you want to go international, affiliate with organizations that are international and engage and network and collaborate.
That's a really good tip. I would think you would do it advertising, but I think what you just suggested is a much better route.
I think it's more effective than just advertising. I mean, if you're going to advertise, it's got to be strategic, targeted advertising. But I like the idea of developing rapport with other people and having them bring you into their spheres.
Okay. Now, you obviously did a lot of work with Tony Robbins. What would you say is the key to his success, and do you copy that success?
Well, it's knowing who he is. It's his persistence, his belief in himself, and his tenacity. And he had some tough times. I mean, business is not necessarily an easy road. He pushed through the perturbation, we call it, the challenges, and he overcame. And it's been a roller coaster, but he stuck to it. And that's, I think what he and I have in common is I know why I was put on this planet. I know what my purpose is, and that's to serve business. And I am committed to doing that.
Oh, that's great.
So,
that's really great.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you were in the military before. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, I spent 4 years in the active duty Marine Corps as a logistics officer after earning my undergraduate degree. And that was about 20, I got out about 20 years ago. And logistics is the business in the Marine Corps, so I got to run the business of the Marine Corps. Then I spent 20 years in and out of the reserves, having several commands, but the Marine Corps is the last bastion of pure leadership, I think, and it was great to be able to put myself into those experiences and continue to raise my bar as well.
So somebody looking to hire people, when they look at a Marine, what should they think? That
person is committed toward getting the job done. They have literally been brainwashed to do what it takes to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great way to look at a Marine. What is their saying? No better friend, no worse enemy.
Good point. Once a Marine, always a Marine, too. Eh?
Yes. Let's see here. A couple more questions for you. Now, can you think of a time in business where a peer executive shared with you an experience and that helped you overcome a challenge you were facing at the time in your business?
Well, one of the things I like to do, Peter, is I put myself out there into groups like Critical Mass or Vistage or even Chambers of Commerce and get out there and collaborate and cross-pollinate ideas with business owners. So I'm always getting perspectives from other business owners. And it's amazing how many commonalities exist in the context. I mean, tax planning ideas. We all have things in common we have to do in business, marketing nuances, leadership examples. And thanks to the peer-to-peer referral ideal, I mean, I hired an employee once that helped me establish myself on the internet. So, and that was all done through a peer-to-peer discussion. So once again, putting yourself out there, putting myself out there, listening, caring, and really being committed to doing what it takes to get results.
Okay. And how many employees do you have now?
Well, I've got 3 employees, myself, and then I've got an administrator and then a business development guy.
It sounds like things are going very well for you.
I'm enjoying the ride. It's a fun ride. It's a calling. It's a purpose, you know. So.
That's great.
Yeah.
And if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do so?
So I've got a website, gpsbusinessgroup.com. You can also find that handle on LinkedIn and Facebook. And I'll put a plug. On Thursday, the 9th of November, I'm doing a quarterly planning event. And if you want to attend that, you can just go to gpsbusinessgroup.com and click on events, and you'll see the event. And go ahead and sign up. We still have some slots
And
available.
what time and where is the event
It's
at?
at 1 p.m. It's a webinar. And normally it's an on-site event, but I've got clients in Australia that want to attend, so we're going to do it over the internet. But it's a 2-hour event. It's only 2 hours. Usually it's a full-day event, but we're doing an abbreviated event, 2 hours from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock Pacific. And the details are on the webpage. Again, just go to gpsbusinessgroup.com, click on events, and there's a registration site there.
1 o'clock on Thursday, you said?
On Thursday the 9th, yeah.
Isn't that like midnight in Australia or something like
Actually,
that?
I planned it because it's the morning. It's 8 o'clock in the morning in Australia.
Oh, perfect.
So, yeah, it's
perfect for Australia.
Yeah.
Now, I understand webinars are a nice way to generate revenue or generate business. What would you say?
Generate business, I think, generate interest. I love to do live events, seminars. I do fire walks and board breaks and all that stuff, helping business owners come to terms, business owners and their teams come to terms with what's stopping them, push through that, and achieve. And you can't really do that in a webinar. And the reason I'm doing this leverage webinar experience, it's 2 hours in the middle of the day. You can do it from anywhere you are. So that's why I'm giving that a go, just trying leveraging technology. But I do webinars as well. But there's nothing like being face to face like you and I are right now. You know.
You actually do what do you call it? Lava rocks, hot rock.
Oh yeah. Walking on fire.
Walking on fire.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. If you've never done it before, you got to try it.
I'm afraid to burn my feet.
I know, we all are. And when you do it the first time, once you get to the other side of the fire, you realize what was there to be afraid of. You're like, well, what can I do next? And then you can take your life on. I've done about a dozen fire walks, and I see the fire and I get overjoyed because there's no more fear anymore. So.
Well, what's the secret to walking on fire without? I mean, can you tell a secret?
Yeah, well, it's physics that as long as your foot is not pressing down on the hot coal for too long, it will not burn you. So the key is to keep moving on the fire.
Oh boy!
So that's the key.
Well, that's good advice in business. Isn't
Next
it?
time you're on fire, remember that.
I will remember that. Thank you so much. We have been speaking with Chris Steely. I use the royal we, but it's actually me. I am Peter J. Brennan. I'm the financial editor at the Orange County Business Journal. Look forward subbing in for Rick Franzi. Look forward to the next time we can meet. Thank you very much. Okay.
You have been listening to Critical Mass Radio Show Business Talk Show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.